We just hit the 10-year mark in our career, and we have achieved every single goal that we have set for ourselves up to this point. And while it's a super amazing feeling, I've also come to realize that I still feel empty in a sort of way. So, in this video, I just want to talk through my journey, some of what I have experienced throughout this process, so that by the end of this video, you can hopefully take away some learnings and have some things to think about for yourself in your own career. So, if that sounds like something interesting, something that you're currently going through, stick around and we'll talk about it in the video. So, if you don't know, my name is Wyatt. I've been a product designer for 10 years in the space, and I have recently gone kind of all in on doing my own thing with content, consulting, and trying to start a business. So, the very, very back in my career, I basically set aside these goals that was um, achieve $100,000 salary, be able to make manager, work at some really cool companies, and purchase a house by 30 years old, and be able to self-support myself. And so throughout my career, I was able to accomplish all of these kind of big things and milestones that I had set aside. For me, I was able to actually purchase 2 houses by the time I was 30 years old. I was able to reach that $100,000 salary pretty early on within the first like 4 years of my design career. And then even through consulting and freelancing, I've been able to sustain myself for a couple years of being able to do that. And for a long time, I was just chasing the next thing, money, the next job, the next title raise, what's the coolest company I can get to, and all of the stuff that comes in with the corporate life and all of that stuff. And um, over time, once I got more and more seasoned in the industry and in my career, I realized that there was no such thing as this perfect job, the perfect company, the perfect place. So it didn't really matter how far up the career or the money or whatever kind of ladder you would call it. It never made me feel more fulfilled. If anything, I would get to a company, I would spend like a year there, and then it would just be same shit, different company. Never really felt fulfilled, never really could get behind the mission really of a company, because it never really felt like the work and effort that I would put into it would be reciprocated back out. And so after a while, it just made me realize that, like, hey, the you know, the only way to get some of that fulfillment is to start going after your own thing, right? So once accomplishing those milestones, it was like always longing for that what's next? What is the next interesting thing on the table? And it left me always wanting to jump jobs consistently to try to find that. And because once I got over $140,000 a year, I realized like my life does not change that much. All the bills are paid for. You kind of have all the extra surplus that you want for most things. You can kind of do what you want and not have to worry so much about things every single day on the bills and all that kind of stuff like that. But what you quickly realize that even though you may have hit those career milestones, at least for me, the freedom gets sucked away from you because you're expected to be somewhere at a certain time. You have to be there, 9 to 5, whether or not you have a full 9 to 5's worth of work to actually be doing. Sometimes it gets held up in the companies and things of that sort. And so I very quickly realized, like, hey, sometimes like the money that you trade for the freedom as you get deeper in your career is just not worth it. I took a trip early on in my career, probably about 6 years in, so maybe not early on, but about a little bit over midway through, and we spent like a month in Bali and traveling, and it just shifted my perspective on remote work and what freedom feels like. And that obviously became a barometer for me to go and then try to be able to go do my own thing and leave corporate, right? And then fast forward a few years later, set up ourselves to be able to do that. And then we went and took like an 8-month trip across Southeast Asia and just traveled nonstop as a nomad. And that was another big, huge goal and milestone and career mark. And that was amazing. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. But then over that process, I learned too much of a good thing actually becomes a bad thing. And so I started to feel empty as we would travel more because I just didn't have a purpose or things to work on. And it was just like too much leisure time. And I wasn't enjoying the stuff I was working on for some of the client work. And I wasn't enjoying the digital product that I was working on at the time. And all of this to be said to come back to kind of where we are today and launching of my product, Blockwalk, which blocks all your distracting apps until you hit your daily step goal, something that feels very authentic to me. What it's kind of led me to this point of realization is that like my fulfillment, my not feeling empty, the things of that sort come from working on something that has purpose and has meaning and that I can really get behind and really drives me towards something. Without that, all the career milestones, all of the raises, all the little things along the way really don't mean anything unless you have something that like you can work towards. Um, Setting goals is great, accomplishing things, but just having those does never really felt like enough for me. So I think all this to be said, it just has. It's interesting to see just throughout the career after accomplishing these things that the biggest takeaway for me is that if I don't have something that I am working on that gives me purpose and meaning and pushes me towards like the future that I truly want, which is to work and make money on my own terms and build a company that I can be proud of, that I can show myself, my family, and my friends that I'm not all talk, that I can actually execute. That to me is what kind of drives me these days and is what made me ultimately leave the corporate and go for it because um, that's what fulfills me. That's what makes me feel like I have purpose. And it's not always clean. It's not always like cut and dry. There's ups and downs, but for me, it's like that feels like the next evolution of my career, of my business, of my life is just that. And so I think this is just kind of like a sit down reflection on some of that stuff and kind of what I've learned over the time and just kind of my raw thoughts. So, if you stuck around through this, hopefully you got some insight into kind of just how it has progressed, why I have gotten to this point, and you know, thanks a bunch for being here. If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section below. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Catch you later.